But I come to tell you, it's not what people are saying about you that's hurting you. It's what you're saying about yourself. It's the times that you keep putting yourself down. It's the time that you low rate yourself. See, I come to tell somebody, as I've always preached to you got to learn how to preach to yourself. See, before I put myself down, I'll preach to myself. I'll remind myself of who I am in God. Oh, I'm getting some witnesses now. You cannot afford to put yourself down.
Thank you, Jesus. Hey, and let God. You gotta and let God. Don't worry about it. And let God. Cast your burden and let God. Let God do it. Let God do it. Let God do it. Let God do it. Don't worry about it. You gotta let him do it. Don't cry about it. You gotta let him do it. While you're staying up all night. While you're worrying about it, you can't work it out. Let God do it. Let God do it.
In Judges, the 6th chapter, that's what had happened. Israel has forsaken God. God has allowed her enemies, again, not just to rise up, but God is allowing her enemies to defeat her or to dominate. And so in the book of Judges, we pick it up in Judges, the 6th chapter, in the 6th verse. And notice, as a result of Israel's enemy dominating them, notice Judges 6:6 says, so Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. And the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Notice verse 6. So Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. And the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. And of course, crying out meant that they were desperate. They were saying they needed God's help. They needed God's deliverance. And God sent a prophet when Israel cried out. And Israel did not take heed to what the prophet said. Because when they cried out, God raised up a prophet to speak through a prophet. A prophet is a person that speaks the mind of God for the present, the near future, and the distant future. Again, a prophet speaks the mind of God. So when Israel was greatly impoverished, they cried out, and then God raised up a prophet, and he spoke through the prophet. Yet when you look at the preceding verses, Israel did not obey the prophet. They did not take heed to what the prophet was saying. And after the prophet came, then an angel of the Lord came down. And notice verse number 11. This is the main text of the meat of the story. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abezarite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress, notice, in order to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor. Gideon said to him, oh my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? Watch, but now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. Then the Lord turned to him and said, go in this might of yours. Since you care so much, Gideon, since you're so vexed about what's happening, get up and do something about it. Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianite. Have not I sent you? Verse 15. So he said to him, oh my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan or my family is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And the Lord said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man. Notice the Lord has sent an angel. The angel of the Lord came. And of course, the word angel deals with a messenger. And so the messenger has good news for Gideon. The messenger basically said to Gideon, you are a mighty man of valor, and I am with you. And it's time for y'all to get the victory. It's time for y'all to experience better. It's time for y'all to rise up and get the victory. But notice, even though an angel of the Lord was speaking directly to Gideon, notice Gideon had a problem. And the problem is revealed in verse 15. Don't let me lose you this morning, because the same problem Gideon had in the text is the same problem that many of us have right now. Okay? And so don't let me lose you again. So he said to him, now this is after the angel of the Lord has said to Gideon that I have sent you. I'm with you, Gideon. I'm with you. But notice verse 15. So Gideon said to him, oh my Lord, watch, how can I save Israel? Watch, indeed my clan is the weakest in Manasseh. I got to break this down. Gideon said, Lord, you telling me to go. My family is the poorest in Manasseh. Mind you, God didn't ask him for none of this information. He's volunteering to tell the angel, remember about me, that when it come to my family, we the poorest around here. Okay? But then the boy didn't stop there. He didn't continue insulting himself and his family. He said, now not only is my family poor, but I'm the poorest in the family. Come on, tell somebody, come on now. His family poor. But Gideon said, that ain't enough. And when it come to my poor family, I'm the poorest in the poor family. Whoa, that's right. Lord have mercy. You talking about putting yourself down. An angel is bringing good news to Gideon, but he's busy putting himself down. And so based upon that, look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor the subject this morning, time to stop putting yourself down. Look at somebody and tell them, time to stop putting yourself down. Look at somebody, make it personal, tell him or her, it's time for you to stop putting yourself down. Come on, let's give the Lord another hand of praise. We're going to deal with it being time for many of us to stop putting ourselves down. Again, when we look at the story in Judges 6, Israel, because of disobedience to God, they were being brought low. In other words, because they rejected God's word, God was going to humble Israel and remind them of how much they needed him. Now, because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, God still has to remind people how much they need him. Yes, he does. He has to remind folk that, hey, look, you need me. Come on. Sometimes God got to remind folk that, look, you need me more than you need that job. Now, I'm going to have to remind her that she needs me more than she needs a husband. I've got to step in and remind him that he needs me more than anybody. Come on, because some of us, you ain't going to admit it this morning, but you'll get to tripping sometime. Yes, you will. You'll get on a trip sometime, and you'll forget how much you need God. Yeah, you will. You'll forget how much you need God. Some of us, all it takes, you started making more than $15 an hour when you actually allowed that to cause you to forget that you needed God. Come on. Some of you got your degree, and then you got that degree, thought you were smarter than anybody else, and just stopped letting God know, look, I need you, God. Come on. Some of us got a certain credit score, and just, we can go on and on, but I think all of us probably have been guilty. I said every one of us have probably been guilty of just forgetting how much we need God. But again, God has a way. Oh, Lord. I said God has a way. God has a way. You better look back and say, don't play with God. Don't play with him. Don't play with him. Why? Because he has a way of allowing you to know that you need me. And you need me more than you think. And sometimes in order to allow us to know how much we need him, when we stop obeying him, then he steps back from us. He doesn't answer our prayers. He allows us to pray to him, but he'll shut the heavens up that he will not hear. He will not scream out his arm and do for you the very thing that you know he got the power to do, because he recognizes about you that you done forgot about him. That's the reason the only time you pray is when you in trouble. The only time you pray is when you run up against a problem that you can't solve. And whenever you only talk to God when stuff is wrong, it says about you that you have forgotten about him. Because if you weren't in trouble, you wouldn't be in church this morning. Some folk only come to church when they need help. Some folk only come to church when they need a handout. Some folk only come to church when they want folk to see they sad face. You can't see it if I'm not here. But I want to come in the midst, not to rejoice with y'all, but I want to come, oh God, that I might get somebody to feel sorry for me. But I come to tell you, you better not ever forget about the God that helped you. You better never forget how low you were before God decided to pick you up. You better never forget that it was God that put his hands on you, that made a way out of no way. Am I right about that? We don't ever need to forget about God, because when Israel forgot about God, they actually forsook him. And when it comes to forsaking God, it says about them that they forsook the word. They stopped doing the very thing that he taught them to do. And isn't it a blessing to be taught to do right? Isn't it a blessing to be taught to do right? But then some folk will be taught to do right, but then all of a sudden when they get grown, as the old folks say, they start smelling themselves, and now all of a sudden they don't want to do right no more. They don't want to do what they've been taught to do, but they'll start doing the very thing that they were taught not to do. You were taught not to touch it, now you're rubbing on it. You were taught not to go there, now you're spending all your time there. Come on. But we can never forget about God. I got to move on, but church, we can never forget about him. Because again, he has a way of reminding every one of us how much we need him. And so that's what he did with Israel. And as soon as God departed from Israel, soon as his presence left Israel, then Israel's enemies knew this is an opportunity to rise up against them. This is an opportunity to defeat them. And so the enemy came in, and without God they were helpless against their enemy. Notice that the Bible says in verse 6, notice this is important. So Israel was greatly impoverished. Notice they were greatly impoverished. Let's deal with this word, because when it says Israel was impoverished, it means, number one, that they were made poor. They were made poor. They were made poor. And understand that when you are made poor, poverty is much bigger than not having a couple of dollars. Poverty is a mindset. And see, when Israel began to be defeated, they took upon themselves a poverty mentality. Oh, and whenever you grab a poverty mentality, you are going to put yourself down. You're not going to have a problem talking about yourself. You ain't going to have a problem dogging yourself out. Yeah, you busy talking about what folks saying in the street, but I come to tell you, it's not what people are saying about you that's hurting you. It's what you saying about yourself. It's the times that you keep putting yourself down. It's the time that you low rate yourself. See, I come to tell somebody, as I've always preached to us, you got to learn how to preach to yourself. See, before I put myself down, I'll preach to myself. I'll remind myself of who I am in God. Oh, I'm getting some witnesses now. You cannot afford to put yourself down. And some of us, we put ourselves down too much. You always somewhere talking about yourself, putting yourself down. But see, they were made poor. Number one, they were made poor materially, because the enemy started coming in, taking things. Started taking things. They were also made poor mentally, because the way they looked at themselves was different. See, there's no way you're going to walk with God and then leave God and then see yourself in the same light. No, mentally, how they felt about themselves changed. This is what allowed Gideon to say the thing that he said to the angel, in not just putting himself down, but Gideon put his entire family down. Why? Because when it came to being poor, he was poor mentally. But also understand that they were made poor spiritually. Now, this is the most important, because when I say to you that they were made poor spiritually, I am saying that when it came to Israel, they were bankrupt. They were bankrupt. Oh, let me deal with it. They became bankrupt, not in the natural sense, but in the spiritual sense. Now, to be bankrupt means that you are completely lacking in a particular area, which normally causes a person or a family to lose or forfeit certain things like money, land, and assets. See, whenever you naturally go into a bankruptcy, saving God gives you a miracle, you're going to lose something. You're going to have to forfeit something. Can I preach it right? And most of the time when you enter a natural bankruptcy, you're going to be forced to lose good things. You're going to be forced to lose things that you desire to hold on to. Even in a natural bankruptcy, people will lie to you. They'll tell you you can't keep something. They'll tell you that something is going to be all right. And then in the middle of the bankruptcy, they'll change the rules on you. And then they'll desire to take what is valuable from you. But even if you think a natural bankruptcy is bad, I come to tell you that the worst case to be in is to be spiritually bankrupt, which means that you have no faith. You have no confidence in the God that fathered you. You have no confidence in the one that saved you. And I come to preach real hard this morning because the church is filled with people who are spiritually bankrupt. You allowed a pandemic to bankrupt you. You allowed a virus to take your faith. You allowed what we are going through to steal your joy. See, in a natural bankruptcy, you're going to lose something valuable. But likewise, in a spiritual bankruptcy, you're going to lose something valuable. That's the reason you have no peace. That's the reason you have no joy. That's the reason you lost respect from people that thought you was a faith walker. But now we see you were just a talker. Can I get some witnesses in the house? Don't get spiritually bankrupt. Because when you are caught without faith, you're going to lose things. Don't go spiritually bankrupt, but don't want me to take notice. Can we deal with it? Can we deal with it? When you're spiritually bankrupt, you lose strength. You forfeit, listen, the ability to fulfill your purpose. You forfeit that ability to walk as the man of God that God ordained you to walk as, to be the woman that he ordained you to be the family that he wants you to be. Because when you are spiritually bankrupt, when you have no faith, you are going to lose things. And see, John 10:10 said that the thief, come on, Bible readers, coming not but to steal, kill, and to what? Destroy. That's when some of you looking dried up in church. You're bankrupt. Have nothing to draw from. Come on, y'all. We can't act like we don't know about it. Even Jesus' own disciple in Mark, the 4th chapter, when the storm came, he found out about them that they were bankrupt. Come on. Woo, isn't it amazing how big folk talk before the storm? Isn't it amazing how much of a giant folks are before the storm? See, that's the only thing we can say about some folk. I remember you before the storm. But the storm revealed something about you. Come on, can we teach it right? Tell your neighbor, a storm will always bring out the true you. You don't know a person till they put under pressure. You don't know a person. I know him. No, you don't. You ain't seen him when all hell breaks loose. You don't know him the way you think you know him. Come on. And in the midst of a storm, these grown men got to crying like boys. flipped out on Jesus. My name ain't Jesus, but since the pandemic hit, I had some folk flip out on me. In the midst of a storm. Change on me. Accuse me of not caring for people. Because God said, open up my church. So when I obey him, I don't care about folk. He putting us in danger. But see, when you spiritually bankrupt, you talk crazy talk. You talk a talk that need to be put in the trash can. And these grown men started acting like boys. Went to Jesus, accused him of not caring. Jesus got up, rebuked the wind, rebuked the storm, and then looked at them and said, how is it that you have no faith? How is it that in a storm you file in bankruptcy? You're saying to me that you don't trust me in the storm. Come on. But see, I found out about it that he's the same God in a storm as he is when everything is calm. See, some of you couldn't amen that because you ain't found that out yet. But when you find out that he's the same God in a storm, you praise him in the midst of a storm like everything is calm. Why he talking like that? He know God won't change in a storm. Moses sent out leaders to spy out the land of Israel. Go look at the land. They spent 40 days over there spying it out. Looking at how good everything was. But came back, 10 of them with a negative report. And told Israel, the land is good. But we can't have it because giants own the land. Now watch. And they said when it came to us, we were like grasshoppers in our own sight. So we were in their sight. Put themselves down. See, something is wrong when you as a child of God have no problem bragging on sinners, but you low rate yourself. Something wrong with that. Am I right about it? But see, some of us, you don't have a problem putting yourself down. And I'm going to have to deal with you. Because some of us guilty this morning of putting ourselves down. Talking in a way that we shouldn't talk. Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. See, we have to guard our mouth. Come on. You have to be careful what you say. I know we're living in difficult times, and I know some of the things that are happening in the nation is real. I recognize that. I'm not an ignorant man. I don't live in a bubble. I recognize that when you just get to talking about certain things, yeah, there are issues that are going on, no doubt about it. There's things that need to change, no doubt about it. No doubt sometime when you grow up as a black man, that is sometimes tougher for you. No doubt, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that you're going to run into racist people no matter what color you are. Because like it or not, if some folk don't get good and say, there's no way they can love somebody that's different than them. And so the answer is not just only in a protest, but some folk got to get good and say before they can ever love anybody because they're full of hatred in their heart. Come on, somebody. I ain't ignoring the issues. Why don't pastor preach about that? I'm not ignoring the issue. There are real issues. But see, I can't put myself down. I can't put myself down to be a part of your group. I can't low rate myself just to be in your group. I can't march with you and you ain't saying the right thing, because I cannot utter out of my mouth that I need to be free. When John 8:31-32 said, whom the Son make free is free. I can't say I ain't been liberated, because God liberated me. You can't turn back the clock. I'm not going to insult myself because somebody don't love me because I'm a black man. I'm a black man, but I'm free. The nerve of some folk. You can't turn it back. Things are not as bad as they used to be. I don't care how much you cry. I'm not going to belittle myself. I'm not going to beg people to love me. I'm not going to beg people to accept me. Come on, can I teach right? See, you got to be careful, because you'll join a movement that wants you to insult yourself. Some of y'all don't like this, because you've been saying that stuff. Free us. Liberate us. You going completely against what the word said about you. Can I preach it right? Now you're actually of a new race. You of a race no man ever seen. You from a city that God built. You're not a citizen here. Our citizenship. Come on, see, when you teach it right and folk been manipulated. Bible says if any man be in Christ, he or she is a new creation. We have to be careful. If the only way I can be your friend, I got to put myself down. I don't need to be your friend. Do you feel me? So you got to be careful what you say out your mouth. Now, God may use some of us to better the movement, but we got to come into it with a different mindset. We got to come into things looking at it from a different perspective. Come on, that's true. Not being afraid to speak. Not being afraid to disagree. Yeah, change needs to happen. No doubt. But yet we still live in an evil world. Come on. But when it comes to me, I have just decided years ago that I was done putting myself down.
Thank you for watching A Word for Deliverance with Pastor Leonard Cochran of A Place of Refuge, Noonan. A Place of Refuge is located at 10 Fisher Alley in the city of Noonan, Georgia. If you would like to visit us, our worship times are every Sunday at 10:15 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7:15 p.m. To order today's message on CD, please call the church office at 770-252-3855 and reference the order number on the screen.